So we're down to like 10 days and 20 something hours. Or 9 days and 20 something hours. A little less than 10 days before my sentencing. And I'm definitely still in the mind state that I'm just kind of ready for this to be over with and to just know what the sentence is going to be, and start preparing for and planning my life for my incarceration and after. But honestly, like a little bit of anxiety is kind of creeping in. Like I told myself, probation's possible but not likely. Prepare for expect to go to prison because that's the most likely scenario here. And I figured a year and a day, 2 years, I'll get a sentence, something along those lines, since my range is 0 to 4 years. And considering like 0 criminal history points and all that, and now that I've done like the risk assessment that Grand Prairie will do in designating me to prison, I know I'm definitely going to a camp 100%. And I know that those my pattern scores are really low. And there's that administrative relief thing that I made a video about on my YouTube channel, or administrative remedy that could likely, with any sentence like that, mean that I only do a few months and then I come home and do the remainder of my time on home confinement. That's if the CARES Act doesn't expire until my sentence is up, because if it does, then I still got to go finish my time in prison, which is a real roller coaster that I know is possible that I'll be on, but I'm definitely really anxious about what that would be like. You know what I mean? Like what it would be like to go to prison and in a few months, get redesignated to home confinement. And maybe on a 2-year stretch, be on home confinement for a year and kind of get settled into the concept of not having to be in prison for any ever again, or for any notable amount of time. And then just boom, at the click of a finger, I could be in there finishing my time, another year or so. And that's really intimidating to me. You know what I mean? It almost makes me feel like, do I, when I get to prison, even want to shoot for the administrative remedy thing? Because here's the thing: if I get like 3 years and I do the administrative remedy thing, and after a few months in prison, I'm able to, I get to what I can do my time on home confinement. That really is dependent upon the whole CARES Act and COVID situation continuing throughout that entire period. And like I could go home and do 2 years on home confinement with an ankle monitor and really strict conditions, and then the CARES Act thing expires, and then I gotta go do a year in prison. Versus on a 3-year stretch, if I just do my time in prison, if I can qualify and get through RDAP, then I would only be in prison for like a little less than a year and a half, and I'd be in a halfway house for like 9 months. And then I would go home and there's no more prison time being held over my head. So no matter what would happen with the CARES Act, ultimately, I could end up doing less time in prison by just simply not fighting the fact that I'm in prison when I get there to try to get administrative remedy. But then again, I mean, I would much rather do my time on home confinement than in a prison. So, it's really kind of something that I've really been kind of giving a lot of thought to, because, we're soon going to be at that point. My sentencing is in less than 10 days. And probably within, about 30 days after that is when I'll have to report and turn myself over, to the Federal Bureau of Prisons and report to my actual prison camp to officially get processed as an inmate. So that's like, I mean, we're talking like maybe 40 days from this moment, I will be getting strip searched and put in a jumpsuit and put on my quarantine intake pod, which my understanding with the process now with all this madness is I'll probably be on that quarantine pod for like a month and a half, which is crazy, before I'm even in general population to actually get assigned a housing unit. But there's definitely like a little bit of anxiety kind of creeping in. I definitely am very, the fears that come with this, with the incarceration, the fears that people will forget me, or I'll become a burden, and I'll just, be left with nothing and no one, because I already pretty much have nothing, but no one when I come home, definitely is hovering over my head a lot heavier, now that we're getting so close to sentencing. In addition to that, this is weird. Oh, there's someone's like pulling up behind me. I'm like, what? But You know, one of my other fears is that, you know, people will resent me. People very close to me, you know, my closest loved ones will resent that I went to prison, will resent that during that time I was dependent on the generosity of others to survive, that will resent me for not being in the free world and being who and what I could be to them in the free world, or for the holidays I'll miss and the birthdays and, you know, milestones in their lives that I won't be able to share or celebrate with them. And, you know, that's a heavy burden to process. You know what I mean? And I think it's something that you process on different levels and from different angles repeatedly, probably throughout your entire incarceration, and maybe to some degree when you come home. You know, I'm fearful of my financial struggles while incarcerated. You know, I'm not a person who's financially comfortable, certainly not to the point of being able to go into prison and put, you know, hundreds, or, you know, probably more like thousands, depending on how long I'll be in prison, of dollars on my books, and just know that I will never have to worry about not being able to afford basic food items, you know, to control my blood sugar, you know, and deal with that aspect of medical need that I have, or afford OTC meds to try to buffer my chronic pain so that I can function, or to afford stationery, you know, to keep in contact with people, or to afford, you know, needed clothing. You know, this is West Virginia. We get all four seasons, but the winters tend to be incredibly humid and hot, and our winters are brutal. And this is in the mountains where the winters are crazy brutal. So not only do I generally need clothing, you know, off the commissary, but I will specifically need wintertime clothing and summertime clothing. So it's not like a one and done thing where I get in there and I get my basic clothing, and that's no longer potentially going to be an issue again during my incarceration. And that stuff is crazy expensive. You know, it's a lot. You know, it's a lot to process. It's a lot to continue to process. And I'm still mostly in the mind state of, I'm just ready to get this over with. I'm just ready to get sentenced, and not be like an unknown in my life, that not be something that is kind of up in the air, or, you know, like a wild card, I guess, and thinking about my day-to-day life and my future, and if the future of my loved ones, you know, in relevance to that. But a part of me is starting to get kind of like, it's kind of like when you catch a flight and you're on the tarmac, and, you know, when you take off, and of course when you land too, you know, there's that turbulence and things are getting kind of bumpy. And even though, you know, for me, I don't have a fear of flying, so even though, you know, I know that this is, you know, the chances of this being a dangerous situation are extremely minimal, you know, and just like with prison, I know the chances of this being something that would just break me down or destroy me or whatever is very minimal, because I'm a resilient person, and I'm a person who certainly has thought things out and prepared to the best of my ability. But, you know, there's always kind of like that little bit of nervousness that kind of kicks in, where it crosses, where worst case scenario things kind of cross your mind. And, you know, and thankfully, you know, just being a logical person, you know, they cross my mind, but I'm able to suppress them and kind of push them aside, you know, and deal with them appropriately. But, you know, it's a lot. It's still a lot. So this is my update. Less than 10 days before sentencing, and I'm gonna get through this because I have to, and this is just a slice of my life. But honestly, the weight of things, I guess, is starting to feel heavier in a sense. So I don't know if I'll do another video before my actual sentencing. I may, you know, in regards to this whole timeline situation. But regardless, you know, positive vibes, prayers, you know, are appreciated, whatever it is you're into. I'm not judging. I'm not, you know, excluding anyone. If you have something positive to contribute, it is certainly very welcomed. If you wanted to support, you know, my YouTube channel, you know, which really just supporting my incarceration journey. You know, if you want to support my incarceration journey, you know, financially in any way, you know, my Cash App and my PayPal is, you know, that information is readily accessible. And of course, I'm still free. So there's Walmart, Western Union, Walmart, Western Union, MoneyGram, all that are all options. You know, I'm pretty easy to contact too. But mostly, you know, if you want to contribute, the big thing that I would love support-wise is just a whole lot of prayers. And if you're not a prayer, you know, maybe some positive vibes. Maybe do that manifesting thing that people talk about where you kind of envision a good outcome, a positive situation. And because I do believe there's some merit in that materializing. You know, like I said, my thought, you know, at one point I was really excited about the prospect of probation, knowing that's not likely. Then my thought was like, a year and a day, 2 years. But the feds, they sentence you in months, not years, by the way. And almost never is the amount of months you're sentenced to actually a round, solid number of years. It's usually a number of years and a miscellaneous number of months. And I really just, you know, with my lawyer being the way that he is, I really feel like I'm probably going to walk out of there in 10 days and say I got like 27 months. I feel like that's probably pretty spot on and accurate for what the outcome is going to most likely be. I mean, statistically and circumstantially. So, anywho, just my thoughts, just checking in. Good day, God bless, and we got this. We're going to get through this.